I believe we should move to make college affordable for everybody. There are some voices saying, well, that doesn't count unless you go even further, unless it's free even for the kids of millionaires. But I only want to make promises that we can keep. Look, what I'm proposing is plenty bold. I mean, these are big ideas. We can gather the majority to drive those big ideas through without turning off half the country before we even get into office. And that, I think, is the best governing strategy, as well as what it's going to take in order to win. And Lord knows we got to win. I'm Pete Buttigieg, and I approve this message.
So what you just heard there was Pete Buttigieg attacking Bernie Sanders. At the end of the day, he didn't say Bernie Sanders' name or anybody else's name, really. But what he did was suggest that while his own plan tries to improve access to higher education for the majority of people, it's not so radical that it gives free university and college to the children of millionaires and billionaires, which is supposedly Bernie's plan because Bernie Sanders wants universal free public education for all, not just K-12, but at the post-secondary level as well. But Pete Buttigieg is lying to you. He's being extremely disingenuous, and there's a few ways to look at this that show just how disingenuous he's being. The first and biggest one is that most of the free university plans being touted in the United States don't apply to the private elite colleges, like Harvard, like the Ivy League schools. And that's where most of the elite send their children. They send them there not only because those schools are expensive, but because they're highly exclusive and prestigious, and they're rooted in family tradition, and on and on and on. And just because you make tuition free at local state schools, it doesn't mean that the rich are going to pull their children out of Harvard or Yale or Brown or any of the Ivies to send them to a free public university just to save the tuition checks. That's not gonna happen. When you make university and college free at the public level, you're benefiting working and middle class people predominantly. You're not benefiting the most rich and powerful and prestigious families. Beyond that, it needs to be said that when you reduce the sticker price to zero, university and college doesn't become free. It still has to be paid for. The resources, the labor, the infrastructure, all has a cost. But if you raise taxes on the rich, on their wealth, financial transactions, income, on and on and on, which is Bernie Sanders' plan, then it's not actually free for the rich. The rich will have their taxes increased by more than what they would save in free tuition. And so for them, it's not free. It might say $0 on the bill for the child of a millionaire or billionaire, but their familial tax bill would almost certainly increase by more than the savings of the tuition. But for most poor working and middle class people, any increases in taxes, and there might be none for most of those people, will be more than covered by a decrease in tuition on the family budget and on the individual budget. And that's the whole point. It doesn't matter what the sticker price says. It matters that through redistribution, you make universal public services free at the point of access, funded through progressive taxation on those people and those families with the ability to pay. It also needs to be said that when you make a service universal at the point of access, it's much more popular and much more resistant to attack. That's why even very conservative people have a positive view of Social Security, because everyone gets access to it, right? It's not the perfect program, but it's universal and everyone sees that they have something to benefit from it. It's theirs and it's everybody's. If you make a university program and you means test it and it's perceived as helping only a small segment of the population, it's perceived as helping those who are undeserving, and that gets intertwined with classist and racist narratives, that program will be under attack by conservative and regressive forces. I can 100% guarantee it. But if you make something universal, it makes it much more difficult to attack. If everybody who goes to public universities, which are the vast majority of people who attend universities and colleges, they benefit from this, then they will see it as a program for almost the entirety of the population. It might well be the case that those who go to private universities will feel that they don't benefit, but the elite private colleges, they're not part of this deal and they only represent a small portion of the population. That means that this is effectively universal free tuition for everybody. It's going to be a durable program and it could well become as popular and as embedded in the American psyche as Social Security. And we also have to consider the logical conclusion of what Pete Buttigieg is saying. If you believe it's bad to have tuition-free universal public education at the university college level, then you must believe the same thing, or at least you should believe the same thing at the kindergarten to grade 12 level. Why is it fair in the mind of Pete Buttigieg that a grade 7 class tuition is free when that could mean that a billionaire or a millionaire's child will get that grade 7 education at a $0 cost? We realize, however, that through progressive taxation and other means, that even though anybody, whether they're the poorest or richest American, can go to a school without having to write a check at the K-12 level, it's good because universal education has a universal and collective social value. We understand that. And while some people think colleges are different than high schools, the reality is increasingly the case that university and college is more and more required to find decent employment. There's that saying that, a BA is the new grade 12. And if that is the case, then we need to recognize that university educations should be covered with the same principle of universality. And that yes, rich people should be asked to pay more because they can afford to pay more to ensure the system works, but that their children should still get that $0 access that everybody else gets. That means that whether you're rich or poor or something else, you have the ability to go without tuition. Pete Buttigieg knows all of this. He knows every single one of these points. Pete Buttigieg isn't stupid. Pete Buttigieg is actually quite an intelligent man. Just listen to his supporters for 5 minutes and they'll tell you about how Pete Buttigieg is the smartest man in the race. He knows all of this. But that doesn't matter to Pete, because Pete's not trying to put forward a genuine argument about how he's standing up for working and middle class people, while big bad Bernie Sanders wants to send, the children of billionaires to university for free. What Pete Buttigieg is trying to do is fight the very principle of universal educational access by trying to sound like he's sticking up for the access of education for working class people and middle class people to access that education. He's trying to co-opt progressive language to make it look like he's standing for educational access when he knows damn well that if you make university free, that's the best single thing you can do to improve educational access. Now, there are other issues. There are cultural issues. There are issues about intergenerational transfers, not just of wealth, but of educational experience. One of the predictors of university success and university access and university completion isn't just income, but, did your parents go? And in some cases, you might have slightly more income than somebody, but because their parents are both highly educated, they might have better chances of succeeding at a post-secondary level despite being a little bit poorer. That's all important, don't get me wrong, but if you reduce the sticker price to $0 and you increasingly treat university and preschool, mind you, this applies to pre-K as well, as the K-12 model, you will improve universal educational access in the United States. That's a guarantee. But Pete Buttigieg doesn't want to do that. But here's the thing. America has moved in a progressive direction. Democratic primary voters especially. This isn't 2008 anymore. This isn't even 2012 anymore. Bernie Sanders has changed the game. And so now you can't just oppose universal educational access because you're a neoliberal and you want to keep the poor poor and you want to preserve the elite educational access for yourself and those like you. If you say it like that, people are going to run you out of town, and rightfully so. So the only thing neoliberals like Buttigieg and Clinton and Klobuchar can say is we don't want to pay for the tuition of millionaires and billionaires. But again, Bernie Sanders' plan is the best one to ensure that anyone who has the aptitude and desire and drive to achieve a high level of education can get that education. He is the one that will provide that through a $0 sticker price, but which will be funded on taxes for the rich. And don't let people like Pete Buttigieg, Clinton, Klobuchar, anybody else try to tell you that he's paying the way for millionaires and billionaires. What he's doing is building up a system where everyone's included, funded on increased taxation on the wealthy. It's the way that the system should have been built from the very beginning. It's a shame that it's taken this long. It's a shame that Pete Buttigieg is trying to obscure the path forward, but drive forward with Bernie Sanders and will get everyone the education they need and they have the aptitude for. That's a just society. It'll only happen with Bernie Sanders.